My name is Bob Babbitt. Welcome to Highlands Postcards from Boston, and it wouldn't be Boston if we weren't with our main man, Mr. Dave McGillivray. Big D, how you doing?
Babbitt. Babbittville.
Babbittville, baby.
I want a McGillivryville someday.
We have a McGillivryville. And you know where it started?
Yeah?
1980 in the island of Oahu.
You remember that far back?
I remember that.
Yeah.
People see, what do you got? How many people running here? Like
30,000.
30,000, yeah.
108.
108. 108 of us.
Always remember that.
What do you remember
number.
about that? That was the third ever Ironman, 108 people, 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, 26.2 mile run. And did you have a clue what we were doing when we got over there?
Not a clue. And the thing I found most fascinating about it is, if you remember, they weighed us in before we went in the water.
Yeah, they did.
They weighed us in again when we get off the bike.
Yep.
And they weighed us in twice on the run.
Yep.
And the funniest thing is, here you're running a marathon, and you're waiting in line to get on a scale to see if you lost more than 10% of your body weight, because if you did, they were going to yank you from the event.
Well, and the best part was I was eating Hawaiian sweetbread and drinking Gatorade. So when I got off the bike, they weighed me, and then at mile 4, I could hear the guy on the walkie-talkie. Can you give me that again? He's gained 4 pounds. What the heck? You can't do that. But you had run from Medford, Oregon to Medford, Mass. You had done, all this amazing stuff even before that. Where does that rank, that Ironman thing? Because it's, in terms of all the different stuff you've done.
It's tough to sort of compare these kind of endurance epics because they're so different in and of themselves.
Right.
It's funny, I'm a runner, but probably one of the toughest things I've ever done was run for 24 straight hours.
Right.
I swam for 24 hours in a pool. I biked 24 hours and done a whole bunch of Ironman and all kinds of stuff, but my forte, my sort of passion is running, and the toughest thing I think I've ever done was run for 24 straight hours. So everything's relative, I guess.
So when people think about this event, they think Ironman, they think, aid stations and support. And when you get over to Oahu, they're like, okay, where's your support crew?
And I said, what support crew? I guess I didn't read the instructions. I didn't bring anyone with me.
When you sent your $25 in enter, you didn't read the instructions.
Was it 20? Was it that much? I thought it was 10. Yeah,
I could admit that. I don't know.
And so Hank Grunman.
Yes.
Then he was the head of Nautilus Fitness Center. They were the sponsor of it, and as you know, and he threw a phone book at me. He says, "Well, you need a support group because there's no aid stations out there." And so I just started rifling phone numbers, and I got a hold of a guy who's from the Navy and his young daughter, and they came to my hotel, picked me up. I got my bike, threw it on their roof, put my arm out the window, held my bike on the roof, and we drove to the stop.
So just some stranger.
Some stranger.
Call some stranger, and he comes and helps out.
And he did it. A Navy SEAL, of all people.
And now, any contact with them since? Or
that was it. I don't think he ever wanted to see me again.
Yeah. So, hey, why don't you hang out here for all these hours?
The funny thing was that he got caught in a traffic jam.
Yeah.
And so I stood on the side of the road for at least a half hour waiting because I ran out of fuel. I had no water, no anything. And so it was an adventure back then, for sure.
So you've now run this event 44 in a row. This will be your 45th in a row. You got involved with this event way back. Now you're race director for it. How has the event changed over the years? I mean, those are early days. It maybe had more of an Ironman type of, small Ironman type of feel. Now, it's a huge extravaganza.
Yeah, well, obviously we're known for our tradition.
Right.
And our history and all that. So a lot has remained the same, but a lot has changed too, as the industry has changed.
Yeah.
And back then it was all about competition. When I got involved initially, there were about 7,000 people in the race.
Which is a huge race back then.
Which was the largest marathon, But in comparison to today, obviously, that's not the case. But and then came along the 100th.
Right.
And the year before the 100th, we had 9,000 people in the race. The 100th, we went almost to 40,000.
How did you do that? The roads are so narrow.
So 4 times the amount of people. So it took us 2 years to kind of plan this whole thing out. It was still one gun, one start. And even though we used the chip for the very first time, it was a whole different world trying to organize this. It took 29 minutes for everyone to cross the starting line. And the rest is history. And then the race continued to grow. And now we have 30,000, which is a self-imposed field size limit. And it's made of the best athletes in the world, plus those who have qualified to earn the right to be here, and 20% of people who have earned a special invitation via charity programs and whatnot.
Right.
And now we're raising $30-40 million. So we have the front end, we have the back end, and everyone in the middle. So we have it all.
Back in the day, and it's always been the Jimmy Fund for you over the years. How much have you raised for Jimmy Fund?
It's tough to really put a calculator to it, but it's hundreds of thousands. With all the races that we've directed that raise money for charity and everything, I mean, it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's pretty amazing what this industry has given back in terms of philanthropy.
I was going to say, these are small sports with big hearts. That's really what's changed everything. So after the bombings in 2013, I remember being at I don't know if it was a publisher of Runner's World, somebody got up and said, Bar Yasso, this is going to be the most important marathon in the history of mankind, right? This is like the night before the race, right? But you guys, after what happened in 2013, you had to change everything in terms of security, in terms of just making sure that the event would happen, and the whole world was watching.
It was a new event. We almost had to start from scratch.
Yeah.
And what happened, it happened in stages because we had to spend the first 3 months sort of recovering.
Yes.
And paying honor and tribute and memory to those who were profoundly impacted.
Yes.
So we didn't even get started. We didn't even critique the race, the 2013 race. Normally the day after and the week after and the month after, we're getting together, we're having post-race, your
post-mortem
on kind of after-action report. We didn't do any of that.
Right.
None of it, because we were so focused on the recovery. And then we had to deal with the overwhelming interest by people all over the world wanting to come here.
And everybody, all the media that never really could care less.
And then just all the different creative ideas, people having suggestions about maybe you should do this and you should do that. And so we had to harness all of that, put it all on the table and pick up pieces of it and say, what should this thing be? What's the vision? And then we increased the field size another 9,000. You add to that a whole different layer of security, and then we only had a few more months to figure it all out. So it was a new normal, but we pulled it off, and as everyone knows, it was epic, and it couldn't have ended any better with Meb winning. He had the names of those who died in the bombings on his bib number. You couldn't have written a better script for the fact that goodness overcame evil on that day.
And after that one, were you able to stay? Well, you were there for Meb winning before you went to run.
Well, what happened was I went back to run. Obviously, I saw Meb win, and I went back to run. And it was really emotional.
Absolutely.
Just because it was so different that year. We had so many more people lining the course, but for the first time, I saw more signs out there. People holding signs. We will not be denied. We will not be denied our running freedom, and just remembering the victims. It was, like I said, we'll never duplicate that race, ever.
So for you on race day, what do you do on race day?
Well, I head out to the start early in the morning, and I try to be one of the first ones there. You want to make sure things start off on the right foot.
Right.
We have a great team of experienced people. They know what they're doing. But, for me, I always felt like the sign of a good event director is one there where if they didn't show up, no one would miss them.
Right.
And so the idea is to do all that work on the front end, delegate to the experts, let them do their job. I always feel like I'm more of a conductor than I am a director, where, I'm out there just making sure everyone gets along in a harmonious way, and we have a good product at the end of the day. So when I get out there, I'm just making sure things are set up properly, and then as we get close to about 8:30 in the morning and we start lining up the athletes with disability, and then the wheelchairs, and then the hand cycles, and then the duals, and the elite women, and then the first wave, I'm just making sure that all that runs smooth. There's no room for error.
None.
We only have 39 feet at the starting line. We got 30,000 people. We have all these different divisions, all these different start times, all with very specific gaps, because we got to make sure that they maintain that gap, because what goes on down course, we don't want lead vehicles overpassing other lead. There's so much to this.
Yes.
Very complex.
So you're one of the early guys who, back in the day, runners were runners, cyclists were cyclists, swimmers were swimmers, triathletes. Everybody was on their own silo.
Sports specific,
right?
Yeah.
You were representing, you're working with Dave Scott, working with Karen Smyers, putting on triathlons. Mm-hmm. How did you balance all of that? Because, to a certain degree, a lot of times the running world maybe doesn't look at triathletes as, they're sort of good at three different things. They're not necessarily great. How did you deal? How did you? Because you've been one of the guys who's helped the whole world understand endurance is an endurance. It really doesn't matter what you do. And Dave Scott's an amazing athlete. Karen Smider's an amazing athlete. Joe Benoit's an amazing athlete.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, I started my business. The very first event I did was a triathlon. It wasn't even a road race.
Yeah.
It was the Bay State Triathlon in Medford.
Yeah.
And I had Dave Scott come and do it, and the Puntos twins, and Colleen Cannon, and Julie Moss, and just all those folks from way back when. So, I mean, I got my start from triathlon, so I had a strong affinity to the sport, and I wanted to help pioneer it, too, here on the East Coast.
Yes.
It was going on the West Coast, but it wasn't
There wasn't much here.
Wasn't much going on here, so we developed the New England Triathlon Series and the Cape Cod Endurance. It was the second Ironman distance triathlon in the country. My passion was triathlon more than it was running. But then after a while, I realized how complex triathlon is, especially putting them on.
Sure, 3 events.
3 events. So I decided, I'm going to let the youngsters now take it over, and I'm going to focus more on the running. It's a lot easier to put on a 5K road race where with 10,000 people, you say, run down to that cone, turn around, come back, pack things up.
We'll be here.
I'd be home by noon, So I took the easy way out. But it's a delicate balance to all of it, and I think we struck that.
I love that. Dave, have yourself a blast.
Thank you.
On Monday, and 45 in a row.
It's going to be special for me. My son is running for the first time, Max. He's 22 years old. He graduated from Harvard back in May, and he just says, I want to experience this too. I remember 18 years ago, I was holding him in my arms on the starter's platform at the start of the marathon, never knowing then that someday he was going to line up himself and do this. And so I'm going to wait for him at the finish, give him his medal, give him a high five, and head out myself.
I love that. Dave McGillivray, one of my favorite people on the planet. Thank you so much for everything you do to make endurance great.
Thank you.
Dave McGillivray has been our guest. Again, we are brought to you by Highlands and Polar. This is Postcards from Dave's favorite city in the world, Boston. Hang on, everybody. We will be right back.